Good evening. My name is Brittany Spurlock, and I am a registered nurse currently finishing my BSN at Oklahoma Panhandle State University. This lecture is based on an assignment required from a communication and cultural competence class. The purpose is to practice my communication techniques that I have learned throughout my course, and also to teach others about the differences among cultures in this presentation. I have decided to focus on Native Americans because it is near and dear to my heart. Both myself and my son are currently registered as Potawatomi Indians, as well as many of my family members on my father's side. Firstly, I would like to take the time to define culture. Culture, according to the Free Dictionary by Farlex, is defined as the shared values, beliefs, and practices of a particular group of people. These are transmitted from one generation to the next and are identified as patterns that guide thinking and actions of group members. Now you might be wondering why this would be an assignment for my nursing class. Let me explain. As a nurse, I come across individuals from all sorts of backgrounds. This includes a variety of races and ethnicities, as well as special populations. I treat men, women, children, teens, adults, and the elderly. It is also my job to educate every person I come into contact with about their health disparities and techniques to improve and maintain their quality of life. This is why understanding differences among different groups of people is vital to the continuing of education of nurses and other healthcare professionals. Cultural competence is a set of congruent behaviors, attitudes, and policies that come together in a system, agency, or among professionals that enables effective work in cross-cultural situations. This is according to the Health Resources and Services Administration. As many of you are aware, nurses tend to have a very heavy workload, and they are responsible from the moment they walk onto their floor to the very second that they leave. It is no surprise that because of this intense working atmosphere, that cultural diversity doesn't always get the recognition or appreciation that it truly deserves. Another reason that cultural awareness isn't recognized is because of a lack of knowledge on the part of the nurse or other healthcare professionals. As we are all aware, the United States is a melting pot of many different cultures. It has been stated in a variety of studies that the white population in the United States will continue to decline over the next 30 years. Projections state that once that majority will soon become a minority, and that is according to an article written by the NIU SSP. Okay, so now on to information specific to communications with Native Americans, specifically related to healthcare. First off, I'd like to discuss the many different tribes that make up the Native Americans collectively. Currently, there are 573 federally recognized American Indian and Alaskan Native tribes. Each member also has the added benefit of not only receiving comprehensive healthcare services, but also so do their descendants. It is estimated that there are 3.7 million American Indians and Alaskan Natives in the United States. It has become well known that there are many health disparities among these groups. Lower life expectancy and disproportionate disease burden exists in part from inadequate education, poverty, discrimination in healthcare services, and cultural differences, according to IHS.gov. The leading causes of death include diseases of the heart, malignant neoplasms, unintentional injuries, and diabetes. Other issues include chronic liver disease and cirrhosis, diabetes, unintentional injuries, assault, homicide, intentional self-harm, and chronic respiratory diseases. This is why it is necessary for the healthcare professionals to learn to communicate well with Indians. Native Americans have a multitude of dialects. Some compare the difference in dialects between tribes are as different as English and Chinese. Many tribes were also known for the introduction of sign language to make communicating with other cultures easier. Currently, there are many individuals who still speak native dialect. However, the vast majority of Native Americans speak English fluently. The most commonly populated areas include California, Oklahoma, Arizona, Texas, and New York, according to MSN. Most Native Americans are generally very quiet beings. As healthcare professionals, it is important for us to listen rather than speak. This is a sign of respect. Effective communication has more meaning than verbal. Listening, observing, and memorizing stories and passing them on from generation to generation is a great pastime. Rules for communication include 1. Know someone well before speaking to them for long periods or confiding it with them. 2. Kids should not display themselves verbally in front of adults. 3. Indians never express emotions in public, verbally or non-verbally. 4. They never ask direct questions or expect immediate responses from strangers. 5. Never verbally discipline a child or praise them in public. 6. Never speak for someone else because everyone has their own opinions, even kids. 7. The respondent is usually the person who controls the conversation because they choose when to speak and what to say. 8. Don't signal someone out directly. 9. Don't compete with answers. 10. No answer can be said if it's wrong. And finally, number 11, never ever gaze directly at someone the entire time they are speaking. Okay, now I would like to take a second to switch topics here and speak with you about temporal relationships with the Native American tribes. At this point, I would like to quote an Indian named Black Elk. The first piece, which is most important, is that which comes within the souls of people when they realize their relationship, their oneness with the universe and all its powers, and when they realize that at the center of the universe dwells the Great Spirit, and that this center is really everywhere. It is within each of us. It is within each of us. It is this outlook on life that has shaped the idea of Native Americans everywhere. Spirituality is incorporated into every aspect of their lives. This includes medicine. So it is important when providing treatment that this be taken into account. Something else to keep in mind is the importance of the family unit. Much different than the typical family unit, Native Americans reside in extended families that form small communities. In some tribes, a second set of parents are chosen for an infant, and those unrelated people work together to raise the child. Having an extended family like this allows everyone to be responsible for something. This is reported by roles of Native American families. Now I would like to look specifically at group views on age and gender. I'd like to start with noting many Native Americans recognize more than two genders. There are also third, fourth, and fifth genders documented. The idea being generosity and spirituality clarifies gender establishment to whichever gender fits an individual best. A Crow traditionalist once said, "We don't waste people the way white society does. Every person has their gift. Ever since the world began, there have been transvestites, and from the beginning of the world, it was meant that there should be homosexuals." Stop. This speaks volumes. Next, I'd like to discuss the importance that the elderly have within their communities. Many accept death as a fact of life. Elders are respected for their wisdom and life experiences. Now, not all older people are considered elders. They emphasize listening and not asking why. Many dialects of the Native Americans don't even have a word for why. Believe it or not, Native American youths have faced a lot of scrutiny in past years. They also have the lowest school graduation rate of all ethnic groups, and poverty ranks very high. However, with new organizations forming every day, there has recently been some very optimistic improvements taking place, according to the Huffington Post, when speaking with youths. Alright, so now we've covered the basics and teachings for optimal communication between healthcare professionals and those in Native American communities. I'd like to discuss briefly two techniques that I think are important when using therapeutic communication. This kind of touches back on what we spoke about previously. Listening is going to be my very first tool. As we went over earlier, Native Americans are generally very quiet and find it disrespectful when others are yapping away. I think in this case it is important that they feel comfortable and begin the dialogue so that they feel they are in control of the conversation. Another technique I find extremely important is making open-ended questions. This leaves the patient with the opportunity to continue the conversation and decide where it should go. Alright, so I think we've covered all of our topics at hand. Just to recap, I want to remind you that this is a discussion over communications with different cultures, specifically Native Americans. When I was doing my research, I thought it was very interesting how the family unit is so large. The elders are looked to for their knowledge and experiences, while youngsters have faced a lot of turmoil and grief. I think that it's important that they be recognized for their achievements, and I also believe that the family unit, in a lot of ways, explains their communication techniques. I know that it is important to remain quiet and listen, ask open-ended questions as needed, and most important, always remember that they are a deeply spiritually based community that deserves respect and admiration. And I think that pretty much wraps it up. And are there any questions?
Nope.
All right, thank you guys.